Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi, and I'm very excited tonight because I've been a fan of this man since 1994 when he first was televising games with Phil Rizzuto and Bobby Murcer on WPIX Channel 11 for the New York Yankees. Followed his career throughout. You've heard him called the Super Bowl introductions. He is the current public address announcer of the New York Yankees, and believe he's going to enter his 14th season doing that. It is my honor to introduce to you Mr. Paul Olden. And Paul, I want to thank you for coming on today. This is a real honor for me.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here after all this time in the business. I
Right.
finally get on your show. What took you so long to call?
Well, you know what? Better late than never. But Paul, first I want to ask you, how excited are you to know that we're going to have baseball? I was really nervous the past couple of weeks, but I got to give both sides credit. They got it done, and that's all that really matters.
Well, I knew they were going to get it done from past history of labor disputes. It was just a matter of time. And eventually, both sides came to an agreement they could publicly work with. And I guess some things are going on behind the scenes that they agreed to do, which is probably a good idea instead of dragging on a lockout. So I knew they were going to get back. It's just a question of when. I thought they were willing to give up the month of April, and we got 3 weeks out of April, so that's great.
Now, Paul, for somebody who experienced the 1994 strike, and I know as an announcer that had to have just broke your heart because it was such a great season. Do you think baseball could have recovered if they missed anything more than a month, or do you think they would have been in a lot of trouble again?
Oh, the sport's not going to go anywhere. I think the general baseball fan in particular, and people in general, understand labor disputes and are quick to forget strikes and lockouts once things get back to action. If people didn't go away and stay away after losing a World Series in 1994, then I don't think there was going to be any doubt their fans were going to be eager to join in and come back, especially since no regular season games were lost. So it wasn't as if they missed anything anyway, outside of a few spring training games.
Right. So let me ask you, Paul, as the season approaches, obviously spring training goes on for a good month. Do you catch any spring training games? Like, do you go to Tampa, or do you kind of just hang home, do the other projects that you're doing, or do you try to attend a few spring training games?
Well, I do the PA for the spring training games.
Oh, okay. So that's good to know. Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll be
A warm up,
yeah,
for the regular season.
right. And let me ask you, Paul. I always feel like as a fan, and you could answer this better than I could because you've been there. Those spring training games have to be a lot of fun for just the casual fan who's there, because you kind of get to see the younger kids play at times too. You kind of get an idea of who the Yankees might have, or who any team might have coming up. So those games
Yeah.
have to be very enjoyable for a fan in attendance, correct?
Oh, sure. Yeah. As long as they have a scorecard,
Yeah.
because after the first 4 or 5 innings, you got to have a lot of guys in there whose names you may not remember or know. Guys who have played at A ball and Double A, getting a chance to play in a first class game, which is a thrill for them, and
Yeah.
to let the organization see how they respond when they're playing against the major leaguers. And it's always good to see, to kind of get a barometer on the future, get a look into the future when these guys who are going to be, and they know they're going to be ticketed to AAA and AA and sometimes A ball, depending on their talent level. But it's great to see the future Yankees playing against the present ones.
Right. And Paul, I wanted to ask you this because we'll talk about what you've went through in your career, but you've had quite the career. And what I really find remarkable is the last 3 years of Phil Rizzuto's career were the first 3 years you started doing Yankee telecasts. That had to be a real treat for you. Just talk about working with Phil Rizzuto, because he's very entertaining. The Yankees could be getting beat maybe 11-2, and it won't seem like you're waiting to get home, because this guy will just keep you entertained. He was that type of personality, that type of character.
Yeah.
Just talk about working with Phil Rizzuto for those 3 years that you did.
Well, I quickly learned how to work with him in terms of what lines to feed him or what direction to take the broadcast in, especially if it was a one-sided game, one way or the other. Of course, if the Yankees were winning big, it was fun. But if they were losing big, it's a different story. So you kind of knew what to ask. Hey, Phil, don't forget you haven't done your anniversaries. Oh, Olden, thank you very much for telling me that. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
And we can get into that. So it was fun to work with him and just to know that I knew it was quote unquote what buttons to push to get him to really going.
Right. And that 94 team was so special. And again, that strike just ruined everything. But one of the guys I always felt sorry for was Buck Showalter. And now he's across town. He's going to be managing the Mets. And I got to tell you, as a Yankee fan, while I'm happy he's gotten another opportunity, it's kind of bittersweet because I know that with the talent he has, he's going to win with that team. But what do you think about Buck being back in baseball, and how disappointed were you in his team when that 94 season came to a close like it did?
Well, we were all just downtrodden, upset because of a labor dispute happening at that stage of the year that it came to that. And again, that was a situation where you felt, well, maybe it'll go 2 weeks, and we didn't realize that the animosity between the two sides was so entrenched that it led to the World Series being canceled and then a delay to the 95 season, you remember.
Yes, yeah.
So it was one of those bad breaks that, I think a lot of people were saying the Montreal Expos probably would have won the World Series that year because they had such a great team, but we'll never know, we'll only speculate. And the same goes for Buck in terms of getting a world championship or getting to the World Series. We'll just never know. But I think it'll be fun this year to have him across town, especially it'll add a little frontline story to the Yankees Mets games. And it seems as if the owner, Steve Cohen, is not shy about spending money. And so that means he wants to compete with the Yankees on that level. And he certainly has deep pockets to do that. So it's going to be fun in New York. It's going to be a good New York summer in terms of the baseball teams and who's going to make the most back pages.
Right. And another guy I felt sorry for was, of course, Don Mattingly. And I wanted to get your take on this, Paul, because this has been brought up a lot in the last few years, especially now with the Veterans Committee picking Hall of Famers. What is your opinion on Mattingly? Because, I mean, obviously I'm biased, and I felt like if he didn't get hurt, he was on his way to the Hall of Fame. But he did have 6 tremendous years before he got hurt. Yeah. And there were about 3 of them where he was considered the best in baseball. What is your opinion? Is he a Hall of Famer? How would, if you were voting, would you vote for him?
Yes. I mean, I think you have to use the barometer that they applied to Kirby Puckett. I think when you look at his numbers compared to Don Mattingly or even Steve Garvey or Maury Wills, guys who and recently Gil Hodges finally got in after many years of being on the ballot and certainly more than deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. I think if they use that projected ahead, if he wasn't hurt, type of measuring stick, then certainly Mattingly is a Hall of Famer for sure.
Right. I agree completely. And let me ask you, Paul, so let's talk a little bit about what you've been doing in the present. And it all began for you in 2009. And it was kind of unique in a lot of ways because you'd done so much play-by-play announcing. You did the Yankees, the New York Jets, the Devil Rays. You did the introductions, obviously, for the Super Bowl. But you decided to come back to the Yankees, but you replaced a legend. Now, I know Jim Haw did it for a year, but before that, obviously, it was Bob Shepard, the legendary voice, the voice of God. And you come in 2009, the new stadium, and you kind of take over. And let me ask you, how did that all come about for you?
Well, I didn't decide to come back. They decided they wanted me to come back. Right. I was sought out. I was in Los Angeles because I had taken some time off after I left the Tampa Bay Rays, and I went back to Los Angeles and took 5 years off. Went back to school studied photojournalism, wrote for the school newspaper, was the photo editor for 14 months when I was in school, did some part-time work in radio on a CBS affiliate KNX, doing the sports blurbs every half hour, twice
Yeah.
an hour, and just relaxing and enjoying my time off. I had made quite a bit of money in real estate, so I had some cushion to lay back on. I didn't have to work over that period of time. So they called me, and I had auditioned. They sent a tape out, and I think the audition now, in retrospect, from what I've been told, it was just to confirm their choice. I mean, obviously they knew who they were dealing with. I had worked with the Yankees before, and a
Right.
lot of the people were still in the organization from the mid '90s, knew who I was, knew what kind of person I was. So it wasn't that big of an issue to come back, and it helped that I had worked in New York. People knew who I was. I wasn't cowed by replacing Bob Shepard, because I consider Bob a friend. I mean, we used to dine together all the time.
Yeah.
I knew who he was. He knew who I was. So it wasn't like I was a total stranger to him and coming in and replacing a legend, and having that kind of a self-imposed pressure put on. So it was a pretty easy transition for me, actually.
Right. And what a way to start. You know, it was the new year, the first year of the new stadium. The team wins the
Yeah.
World Series, which had to be a great thrill for you as well. But let me ask you, I always wanted to know this, Paul, because to me, it's the most challenging part of broadcasting to do, in my opinion, because you have to know everybody's names, and not just for the Yankees, for their opponents and stuff like that. So let me ask you, if you see a couple names that you're not sure how to pronounce, do you go down to the field that day and kind of seek them out and say, hi, Jason, how do I pronounce your last name, or something like that? Because to me, I always felt like, wow, it's amazing how they're able to pronounce these names so well, because they do seem complicated at times.
Yeah, that used to be the standard operating procedure years ago, but now, especially in the COVID era, where we were restricted from even going to the field, there is so much online. Major League Baseball puts out a pronunciation list every season. Every team puts out a pronunciation list, a printed list. Some teams even go to the extent of having the player himself record his name, and that's available online to hear the player say his name, which is
Yeah.
always great.
Yeah.
Because sometimes uh, something literally is lost in translation between the media relations department and what they write and what the player wants. I've had that happen before. So it's easy now, and so many of the players have been in the media eye since high school. So a lot of their old videos of them in action and play-by-play, and even interviews with them doing stuff on camera themselves and saying their names. So it's pretty easy now.
Right. And one of the good things about it too, Paul, is I'm not sure if you travel with the team at times, but if you're not
Yeah.
somebody that's looking, if you're not somebody that's looking to travel, you know you're going to do 81 games a year, and you're always going to do the home games. So you're not traveling. So it's got to be fun in that aspect of it, because you just know that you got to show up for work, and you kind of are. It's a labor of love too. You know, it's a job, but at the same time, you obviously love doing it. So that's got to be very fun to do that part of it.
Oh yeah, it's worked out very well. Yeah, the traveling as a play-by-play guy, especially when you're dealing with a losing organization, a losing team, like I was with Tampa Bay for most of those 7 years,
Yeah.
it wears on you. The travel and the prospect that, especially when we would come to New York, we knew for the most part we are going to get trampled by the Yankees and Boston and other teams that just have more resources than we did. So yeah, it's great. I have a lot of free time to do pursue hobbies and interests in New York. And I don't have to live in New York year round. I live in Florida half the year, and I live in New York the other half. So it's probably the best job I've ever had.
Right. And you talked about the Rays, and it's amazing how good they've gotten over the years. They've really done a great job with their ownership, stuff like that, because they're always in contention. I'm sure some of the memories you have were great there, but I'm sure one that really stands out is you obviously got to call Wade Boggs' 3,000th hit, correct? He hit a home
Yeah,
run. He hit a home run,
yeah,
and I believe he kissed home plate. And you obviously
yeah.
remember Wade when you called the Yankee game. So that had to be a cool moment for you as a broadcaster, I would say, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And what was different about that is that was at a time when we still most broadcast teams don't do this anymore, but I would do the first three innings on radio, and then I
Yeah.
would switch over to do TV, and the TV guy would come over and do radio. So I was on TV that night, with that particular inning when he hit the home run, and I had worked out what I was going to say ahead of time, and I just had to basically fill in the blank. So it worked out very well. It worked out according to what I wrote out a few days earlier. It sounded natural,
Yeah.
and it was yeah, it was one of the great highlights of my career. You don't get many of them. I called a no hitter, but it was a Boston Red Sox player no hitting the Rays, but still it's a no hitter. And every once in a while, I hear the Red Sox when they play the highlight of that particular player's no hitter. They use my play-by-play call, which is a
Wow.
little unusual.
And I would have to imagine that's either Hideo Nomo or Derek Lowe, correct? I
Derek
would
Lowe.
assume
Derek Lowe.
Derek Lowe, yeah. And
Yeah,
what was unique about that was he was the closer the year before. It wasn't working out, and it converted him into a
yeah.
starter. So I mean, so you get those moments where you get to do stuff like that. But
Yeah. And it was at Fenway Park, and the crowd was really into it. So that was exciting to call a no hitter for a Boston player in Fenway Park, despite the fact it was against the team I was employed by.
right. So let me ask you, Paul, as the public address the announcer, there's so many responsibilities that people don't realize. You got to do a lot of different read-ins, advertisements, stuff like that. But what would you say is the most challenging thing for you as a public address announcer that, you say to yourself, I got to make sure I'm on my game when it comes to this?
Well, I think the most challenging thing is regarding names of people in organizations that we don't necessarily have an opportunity to ask them how to pronounce their name. There may be too many of them, or it gets lost at the last minute. And I try to just say the name. There's a website online called pronouncenames.com. So for names who aren't athletes, I consult with that to kind of get a base, and then I will ask our media relations or our marketing people who are down on the field with a microphone in communication with us upstairs. I'll say, well, I think his name is pronounced or her name is pronounced this way. Can you ask them if that's the way they want it pronounced? Because sometimes, like with people named Angel,
Yeah.
some people want it Angel, and others don't want the strict Spanish pronunciation of it, and they want Angel, even though they're Hispanic. So I like to clear that up. And there are other times when we're doing, like, for instance, the veteran were recognized in the seventh inning, and he's from a city that's outside of the tri-state area. So I'll call the fire department or the chamber of commerce in that city and ask how to pronounce it, or a restaurant or a hotel. Doesn't matter, as long as I
Yeah.
get somebody in that particular town who can pronounce the name. And it came in handy once. There was a guy who was being honored, and he was from a town in Louisiana. And to look at the name of the town, you wouldn't guess that it's pronounced totally different. It was Bossier city.
Oh, wow.
Uh, so I said Bossier, and so I guessed, and so I called the fire department there or somebody, and they said no, it's pronounced Bossier. So I never would have gotten that out of Bossier just by
Yeah.
looking at it. But that's that's my job to make sure I get these names right, and I take pride in the fact that I will go that extra mile to call somebody in that particular city, and and simply, how do you pronounce your name?
Right. And
And
years ago,
they appreciate that too. I've had people say, "Hey, well, thanks for pronouncing." Says I haven't heard my name pronounced correctly in years. Thank you very much. And I get cards every once in a while, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, from people who wanted to thank me for pronouncing their names correctly.
right. And, Paul, years ago, guys in the PA box, they would have, you could either call it an eye in the sky or a spotter or whatever, but they always had somebody that could kind of help them identify somebody or pronounce a name. I mean, are you pretty much up there by yourself, or do you have somebody that's with you just in case you need, like, assistance with anything, stuff like that? Just like a little
No,
help? No, so it's
no,
just you, huh?
the job is not that difficult.
Yeah,
Any PA guy who needs a spotter, unless it's football, which is
yeah,
totally different. Baseball, no.
yeah,
Football is a different sport. It helps in football, especially when I did the Super Bowls, to have someone helping me out. But I would, like, when I do the Pinstripe Bowl every year, I watch the game through binoculars, and I tell my spotter, I'm concentrating on the offensive guys. Just point to me who makes the tackle, and then we have my board set up where I have the pronunciations right there. And I think this year, it was Virginia Tech that had on their website their players on camera saying, "This is how I pronounce my name. My name is pronounced so and so and such and such." So that
yeah,
helped a lot. I think all
right.
colleges, that since there's so many players.
And that pinstripe bowl has to be such a fun thing to do. It's winter time, they're playing at Yankee Stadium. I mean, just as a fan alone watching a football game, and you've covered football as well over the years, that has to be a lot of fun to be a part of that game and being the PA announcer for that game as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you always like to have a local game in your hometown. I
Yeah.
used to do the Outback Bowl here in the Tampa Bay area until my schedule wouldn't permit it anymore. But yeah, I go back to New York during the winter, Christmas time. It's always fun to be in New York at Christmas time, and do the Pinstripe Bowl.
Right. So, Paul, let me ask you, you've, like I said, this is going to be your 14th season. So it's hard to pick one name that stands out, but is there any name that you've announced over the years that you've favored more than any others, that you love pronouncing more than any other name? Because I know Bob Shepard had a few. He loved Alvaro Espinosa's name. He thought it was so cool to pronounce. Are there any names that stand out to you that you really enjoy pronouncing?
Well, yeah, I go with the current team, and I always like to say Aaron Judge because you really build up to his name, and we sometimes play some animation on the scoreboard just before I say his name, and it gets the crowd cranked up. So Aaron Judge right now is my number one guy.
Right. And
Although we have Isaiah Kiner Falefa coming to play
yeah,
shortstop. That's a mouthful, but he
right.
played obviously in the majors before, so I've said his name before. So it's not like it's something like, here's a tongue twister, but no, it's just a long name, Isaiah Kiner Falefa.
Right. And Paul, the fun thing about this season as well is I think there's 4 teams in that AL East that could really win this division. And with the new format, you're going to get 6 teams from each the American League and National League getting in the playoffs. But just talk about that AL East, because you've got the Red Sox, Rays, Yankees, and Blue Jays, and either one of those teams could win the division. So it's going to be an exciting year for baseball in the AL East.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, you have to consider the Orioles as the team that's going to be the spoiler.
Yeah.
We lost more to the Orioles than we should
Yeah.
have last year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the competition is going to be extremely keen, and you worry about the injury factor, especially in the month of April and May, given that we've lost a few spring training games. We start this coming Sunday with our first game and go to April 5th. So I hope the players get enough seasoning, so to speak, But even when we had the shortened spring training before, there was an uptick of injury in the first couple of months of the season. So let's hope that doesn't happen this year.
Right. And I'm just very glad that they got this baseball thing settled. We need baseball. Paul, let me ask you also about your career. And let me ask you, I mean, I was always disappointed when after 96 you weren't calling Yankee games anymore. And then I knew you had called the Rays, obviously, quite a few years. But I was so happy that you came back to the Yankee organization doing the PA announcing because to me, I always felt like you were a very underrated announcer. And I love the fact that when all is said and done, your career is going to have a big association with the New York Yankees. And to me,
Yeah.
that's got to make you feel good in your career to know that when all is said and done, you're always going to be associated with the New York Yankees.
Yes, 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 and I will even after I stop working in New York down the line, I'll probably still do work for the Yankees here in Florida, the spring training games, fantasy camp. I think that's always going to be on my plate, no matter if I'm in New York or not. At least I hope that's what they would like as well. So yeah, I'm glad to in my golden years to be finishing up my career as a member of the New York Yankees, a great organization. They've taken very good care of me, and I will, do anything for the Yankees that they want. I always tell my friends that if the Yankees call me to do something, I'm going to do it because my mantra is never say no to the Yankees.
Oh, that's great to hear. And Paul, another thing that I found very amazing about you and your career, which I've kind of realized the last month, and I've been listening to different ones on YouTube, is you are quite the guitar player and singer. And I know
I
I've
was,
talked.
I was. I remember most of those videos are 5 years old, if not longer. I don't play and sing like I used to. My interests have gone back to photography more than
Yeah.
playing guitar. I had a run streak going for 4 years, and that held my interest more so than playing and singing. But I still, have the guitar right nearby. You can see it.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always nearby to pick up and strum and see if I can play along with some tunes I hear on TV.
Right.
But I don't play and sing like I used to.
Right. But you know what really
And,
I
of course, anything on the internet's going to live forever.
yeah, and the thing that I love is, I mean, I never realized how good you were. And listening to you play Lightning Crashes, I mean, I listened to that song over the past weekend about 4 or 5 times. I couldn't get
Yeah,
enough of it. So, I mean, that's the thing, too, that a lot of people, they're always
my
going
my
to,
version you couldn't get enough of. My version.
yes. Yeah. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, your version was tremendous. And my thing is that people will always identify you, obviously, as a Yankee announcer or broadcaster. But I mean, it was awesome to see that you have this other talent about you that we never knew about. And I mean, I'm listening to all these songs, and I mean, I was so impressed because obviously you have to have a hobby outside of baseball because
Yeah.
you're with baseball so much that you have to have an escape from it sometimes.
Well, like you said earlier, I only work 81 regular season games at Yankee Stadium, and it's not like it's really work.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to go to the ballpark, especially Yankee Stadium. I work with a tremendous crew, hang out with them socially, so we all get along and like one another, and that helps quite a bit. So it's not like it's really work. They like I said, they take care of me very well. Have a lot of perks. So that's why I don't say no when the Yankees come calling. We had a situation last week when it was announced that there was going to be an April 7th start to the season.
Yeah.
The team sent me 18 promos, various giveaway nights, bobblehead
Yeah.
cap night stuff, radio promos that I record that will play on New York radio during the season. And I was so excited. In one take, I did all 18 in
Wow.
one sitting. I didn't have to do that. They weren't expecting me to do that. but I felt good. You know, only 30-second promos. And so I really got into a good groove, and I said, well, I'm not stopping. I feel good. The voice sounds good. So why not get them all done? That way they won't have to worry about anything, and I won't have to concern myself with doing any more promos for maybe another month or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep them happy, and it keeps me happy.
Right. Paul, it's hard to pick one particular thing because you've had such a long, long career. But is there one memorable moment in the game of baseball or your broadcasting career that sticks out to you more than anything else if you had to pick one?
Not really, but I guess the Boggs 3,000th hit.
Yeah.
There are obviously so few members of that club, and it doesn't happen all the time. And so you really can't plan for it. It was just the circumstances that he was with the Rays and I was with the Rays. And it happened that night against Cleveland, a team, one of my former teams. And I, prepared for it. My preparation worked out the way I thought it would, and it was a big moment. Until and of course the team winning the World Series is number two because I have a beautiful World Series ring, with my name engraved on it, in a beautiful wooden box that they gave me. Those two moments right there have to rank at the top of anybody's list. Calling a 3,000th hit or being involved with a world championship team and getting a ring. And I rode in the parade, the ticker tape,
Yeah.
and then the Canyon of Champions. So not many people can say they've done that.
Right. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for coming on today. Like I said, I've been a longtime fan. It was important for me to get that chance to interview you, and I'm happy I got that chance. And I really want to thank you for coming on today because to me, what you've done.
I want to do a quick look. I don't know if you can see it there.
Oh, I see the ink. Oh, is that the ring?
No, that's the ticker tape.
Oh, wow, that is. Yep, I see it now. I like the
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium sign right there too, which is really nice. Wow, that's an awesome thing.
Yeah. I dropped something. I don't know where it is. Anyway, yeah.
Wow.
So that I keep that nearby as a reminder that hopefully we'll get back to another World Series before too long.
Well, I pray they do. I mean, I want to see it, obviously. I look forward to this season, but I want to congratulate you on a wonderful career again, because to me, what you've done in the game of baseball as a broadcaster, as a public address announcer, should never go unnoticed. I mean, you've always been well prepared and you've always given 150% each and every day. And I really applaud you. And I really thank you for coming on today. It was a real honor for me.
Oh, you're welcome. Call anytime. Keep up the good work, and let's hope that your hope that the Yankees win another World Championship comes true this year.
Well, let's hope so. Paul, thank you again, and have fun in spring training. And I look forward to hearing you call the games this year. Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome.
And that was Paul Olden, ladies and gentlemen, the public address announcer for the New York Yankees. Tremendous career, tremendous human being. He's one of those guys who you hear each and every day when you're at the ballpark. He gives you his best all the time. And as Yankee fans and as sports fans, we're very lucky that we have gotten to listen to him for so many years. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.